Welcome. We have now come to week 5. Now, mostly what we'll be doing in these last 2 weeks, we'll be introducing some new material, but really reviewing old material that we touched on before. So this week we're talking about syntax and structure. Okay. Syntax is the way words fit together in a sentence to give us a sense of sense. There's certain syntactic structure that is evident in English. The subject, verb, object relationship, such as Joe hit the ball. Subject Joe hit, verb, object the ball. What did he hit? He hit the ball. Okay. That is a syntactical relationship. We can alter that somewhat. Okay. We can say the ball was hit by Joe. We've changed the syntactical relationship by changing sort of the voice. Okay, we've made it from active to passive voice. We've made the object, the ball, the subject of the sentence. Okay. That's what syntax means, the ability to see where things fit and then change that fit around and still make sense. We can't do that all the time, but we can do that a lot. Also, there's a basic structure to the English language. It's a little bit different from syntax, but a basic structure. Noam Chomsky maintains that this structural framework is something that's inherent in us. It's not in the nature of language itself. It's not in the nature of our experience. That structure is some way the way our brains work. So because our brains are structured that way, we can learn and use language. There also, I gave you this last week, but I'll go over this again, maybe a little more effectively and perhaps at a different pace here. There are sentences that can be determined by the purpose. What do they accomplish? Now, the typical sentence is a declarative sentence. Joe hit the ball is a simple declarative sentence. It makes a statement. Okay. Most sentences that you use are going to be declarative sentences, a declarative statement, an assertion. That's what we use 90 to 95% of the time in our writing and in our speaking. That's what I've been using 95, perhaps maybe 96 or 97% of the time, and what I've been talking to you in the last few weeks. Then the next example is an interrogative sentence. An interrogative sentence is merely a sentence that asks a question. So, are you understanding what I'm saying? That is an interrogative sentence. Are you having fun today? That is another interrogative sentence. Will you have fun when you open your book and start doing all these things? That is another interrogative sentence. And I hope that you can respond with a declarative sentence. Yes, Dr. Esselstrom, I'm having fun today. Yes, Dr. Esselstrom, I'm going to have fun listening to you. Yes, Dr. Esselstrom, I'm going to have fun digging into the homework. Yes. Okay, that's good. Now, the other form of sentence, the purpose sentence, is the imperative sentence. Do your homework soon. Don't wait until the end of the week. That is a good suggestion, but it's also an imperative sentence. It makes a command. Okay? So sentences that make a command, and we do use them occasionally in writing. We use them often in speaking. You know that if you have children, they are very useful. Okay. Then we also have exclamatory sentences. Exclamatory, this particular category of purpose is the one that we use the least. Okay? But it's still there, it's still something we need to know about. So if I say, it is a wonderful day, okay, it's sort of an assertion, but the way I say it is just sort of it's like a wow. Whoa, this is great. Okay? Or this is great. That's a great exclamatory sentence. You don't really mean it's great, you just say, whoa, wow, it's good. Okay, so those are sentence types. Okay, sentence forms by purpose. Okay, I'm going to spend a little time, and have a little time in your book, talking about diagramming. Now, don't run away screaming. Diagramming is not something you need necessarily be afraid of. It's not something you need to understand completely. It's not something you need to understand completely. It's something you need to be somewhat familiar with. Okay? Because diagramming is a way, traditional way we have of having a schema, having a picture of how sentences work and their relationships. So the typical diagram, and you have some material that shows you this, is simply separating the subject part of the sentence from the predicate part of the sentence. The subject is the noun, the one that acts, the predicate is the verb, and everything attached to it. So we just separate the subject from the predicate. Okay. Then another way is usually in a sentence, in a subject, verb, object sentence, we need a way of indicating the subject and the verb, which is the predicate, and the direct object. Direct object is something that receives the action. Joe hit the ball. I've used that sentence before. The ball there receives the action. Okay, that's the direct object. Now another form of sentence, in the simple sentence, we're just talking here about simple sentences. We've talked about this before. Another form is the subject, linking verb, subject, complement sentence. Now this is a form of the simple sentence in which we have one thing over here being identified or linked to something over here, such as Dr. Esselstrom is talkative. Okay, the is the linking verb which relates talkative back to me. Okay, so it's subject, linking verb is, usually some form of the verb to be is the most common linking verb, and then the subject complement. Complement, C-O-M-P-L-E, which just means it completes the subject. Okay. The subject complement can either be a noun substitute, or it can be an adjective. So talkative is adjective. I could say Dr. Esselstrom is an APU professor. Okay, APU professor then is a noun phrase actually, which identifies Dr. Esselstrom. So the subject linking verb subject complement form is another one of those basic traditional patterns. Now we're here talking about traditional grammar, traditional prescriptive grammar. There are also other ways of looking at sentence structure. There are tree patterns where you identify the noun phrase and then the verb phrase, such as Sister Jane caught the ball. Okay, Sister Jane is the noun phrase, caught the ball is the verb phrase. Finally, I just want to talk a little bit about punctuation. Now, punctuation is one of those things that we sometimes feel is up to us, but it's not. Okay, punctuation makes sense. There are reasons for various punctuation points, various punctuation marks at different places in the sentence. So I'm just going to talk briefly about a number of these. You'll be seeing these again, you'll be talking about these, but anyway, there's a difference between colons and semicolons. Okay. Now, the semicolon is a connector. It says that this over here is connected to this over here. It's the same thing as a comma and a conjunction, such as and, a comma and. You can take out the and, the comma, and put in a semicolon there. Okay. A colon is different from a semicolon. A colon says that what comes after the colon is going to identify or explain what comes before the colon. It's not a connection. It's saying this is going to identify or explain what comes before. Commas are probably the one punctuation mark that you're going to use the most, because it's the one we find most often in writing. But commas are not there just because you want to take a breath. Okay, commas always fulfill a particular grammatical function or syntactical function. I don't have time to go through all of them. Okay, so there's commas for things we're doing in a series, but I'm just going to give you one example here of the use of a comma. And it's for what we call a restrictive versus a non-restrictive clause. Okay, so the boy who won. Let me start this again. The boy who won the contest is my brother. Okay, so who won the contest is a dependent clause in there. Okay, now the boy, comma, who won the contest, comma, is my brother, means that this is added information. Okay, so we're only looking at one boy. Okay, and we're not trying to identify who the brother is. That's the boy who's the brother. But if we take out the commas, the boy who won the contest is my brother. What we're saying is there are a number of boys over there. We can't figure out which one is my brother until I identify who won the contest. That's the one you know. Okay. So if the dependent clause is essential for the meaning of the sentence, that's what we call a restrictive dependent clause. So these are things where the commas make a difference in how we can and should interpret the sentence. So these are important. Finally, periods. Periods are points that we put at the end of sentences. Then you have to make sure that you've got a sentence there. You can't just throw a period in because you have too many words in one line. Okay. A period comes at the end of a sentence. Question marks are another final punctuation point. Question marks come after the end of questions. If you have a question, don't put a period there, put a question mark. Okay, quotation marks surround direct quotations. Someone said something, you want to quote them directly, then you put quotation marks around it. Interestingly enough, since we are in the United States of America, ending punctuation goes inside the quotation marks. So your period goes inside the quotation marks, not outside the quotation marks. If we were in England, then the period would go outside the quotation marks, not inside the quotation marks. Why are things different? Well, they are different because these are conventions that change as the place changes, or as the situation changes, or as the nation changes, okay? So just be aware that some things are rules, and some things are rules that change depending on what game we're playing. Parentheses are similar to commas setting off a non-restrictive clause, but parentheses really are sort of breaks in the construction. So if you're throwing something in, and this is added information, you put parentheses around it. Dashes, you don't use these too often. You don't use parentheses and dashes very often, so stay away from them. But dashes simply mean there's a break in the construction. Okay, so the what comes after the dash may not have any direct relationship to what comes before it. It just means you couldn't figure out. So the thing to do with dashes is try to leave them out. Well, thank you. We've gotten through this, our 5th week. We have 1 week left. See you next time.
Sorry.